more than basic. It's a portion of his rap at the core is ancient. It's imported like a pack of some more observations. They're important like the fact that we're bored of fake shit. More creative, have the floor, so take it. Travel to the core is a normal placement. Tattoos on my arm and
Yo, it's Monday before Christmas. And all through the Hidden Village, we are sweating in the sun because it's like 85 degrees outside.
It is, but it's like 50 in the room.
Yeah, it's getting to that point where we're going to have to start acknowledging that there's something going on. I don't know what it is, but we're going to have to start acknowledging that it's happening. But Christmas is coming. Christmas is on the way. And this is a good season, I think. This is like my favorite time of the year. Now, things aren't going perfectly. The continent of Australia is currently on fire. America has an impeached president for the first time in like 140 years or some dumb shit.
No, Clinton was impeached.
He was not impeached.
Mm-mm.
Clinton was impeached,
He
but he was
not.
acquitted.
He was not impeached and acquitted. He never went to the Senate. He was not impeached.
That's not true at all. That's Nixon. Okay?
No. Nixon didn't get that far. He resigned already.
Exactly.
Clinton was not impeached. He did not get through. The vote did not get through the House.
Okay, there are 3 people in history that were impeached. Name them. 3.
No, I'm not going to, because I don't have to, because this isn't school, Michael.
History hates all of you.
All right, so
No, it doesn't.
moving forward from that. We have some things to talk about this Monday. Christmas being chief among them.
Can we start with football?
We're going to start with football, of course. It's Monday. We're going to start with football. It's Monday at Tattoo with Children. And on Tattoo with Children, we're always start with football on Monday because what you're listening to is Tattoo with Children. I am your host, Flavaray, and seat A across from me in seat B is the Dread Pirate Benjamin with his Christmas hoodie on, and across from us both is the font of historical knowledge, CIO No Pain.
Yep.
Okay, guys.
So Houston played a great football game yesterday.
Listen, Houston has played a great football season, okay? Houston Texans have clinched their goddamn division for the 5th year in a row. The Houston Texans are going to the goddamn playoffs. Let me tell you something about Houston Texans. Houston Texans should fear no one in the NFL, and they should be feared by everyone. Conversely, they should also fear everyone and should be feared by no one. They can lose to any team in the league right now. They can also beat any team in the league right now. You never know what the fuck you're going to get with Houston Texans.
Okay, that's true, but I will say, as a fan of the game, I like what I'm seeing from Houston.
Yeah, they're playing good football.
I like the coaching. Okay, I love the quarterback. The defense is not where I would like it to be. Right. But it's getting stronger every week, and I love that.
If someday, somehow, J.J. Watt actually plays a full season,
right?
Super Bowl. That's it.
Yeah.
It's wrapped up.
100%.
On the other side of the equation, on the other side of that spectrum, we got the Dallas Cowboys, who in fact did not clinch their division.
No.
In fact, they lost probably the only game left in the season. They couldn't afford to lose at all.
Right.
I don't know what happens to them after this. Like, most people, if the Dallas Cowboys was a person right now, you would expect them to have committed suicide already.
Yeah. Well, they tried, but some dumbass told them their plane was broken. It wouldn't have been a loss. The Dallas
That's terrible. That's the worst thing he's ever said.
The Dallas Cowboys literally went 2 hours without running a football play. It was actually impressive.
It was so impressive.
At one point in the third quarter, I thought, should I go to Netflix? And then I thought, no, now I have to keep watching to see if they do run a football play. And they did not.
The greatest quote, I think, in this year has got to come from the coach of the Dallas Cowboys. The head coach of the Dallas Cowboys looked the world in the face and said, "We'll get them next year." Guys, Oh man,
there are so many things that are not true about that statement.
Oh man,
starting with we.
starting with the fact that you assume that you're not going to get murdered in the off season.
Because I don't think Jerry Jones is going to fire his son-in-law. But
if he comes up missing, if his brakes go out one night,
right? But his wife may kill him just so that their children can have some self-respect going through school.
Right. Can you imagine how hard it is for them to go to school? Like, hey, your dad fucked up again. Give me your lunch money, asshole.
Right.
What's he gonna do? He can't run after me. He can't send nobody after me. He can't command troops.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think Ezekiel Elliott had 9 carries in that game.
It was something.
Which is offensive on so many levels.
But Dak Prescott actually set a goddamn record.
I'm sure he did.
For I think it was second for the most passing yards Cowboys have ever accumulated.
Now, the one thing that I did get to watch before that game was that kid from the New Orleans Saints pass Marvin Harrison's record for single season receptions.
Oh, nice.
And he did it on a touchdown.
Very nice.
Marvin Harrison held the record for 143 receptions in one season.
Yeah.
And this kid for the Saints got 145 or 146 and still has a game to play.
Yeah, he's still got, there's several games to play.
So that's pretty fucking dope.
Yeah.
And also, I understand Texas proud. I do remember Emmett, Aikman, and Irvin. I do remember the glory days of the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And I do love this kid, and I love the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
But also, we're from the South, y'all. Who dat?
You gotta love the Saints. If you don't love the Saints, man, we're probably not gonna get along all that well. I mean, the New Orleans Saints have been holding it down pretty consistently for a number of years now.
And as much as people hate Sean Payton, he is Thug Life Incorporated.
I would have him as my coach.
He finds a way to win, man.
Yeah.
And he does the work. I saw a little YouTube video the other day. I just came across it of Drew Brees in the offseason by himself throwing passes to no one as he played out every route in the playbook by himself with a basket of balls and no one else in the room.
And Drew Brees is only 2 years younger than Tom Brady.
I fucking love that, dude. People don't understand what it takes to win.
I say Drew Brees, I meant...
No, Drew Brees.
Oh, Drew Brees, that's what I meant.
Yeah, that's what you meant.
Okay, make sure I said it right.
Anyway, so the 49ers won.
Okay.
I like that. And the reason I like that is because the 49ers harkened me back to the glory days of the Cowboys. When we destroyed
when you kept fucking my dreams up.
Yeah, no, and we did, man. I mean, it was really sad because you had the greatest wide receiver of all time, Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
You had the greatest quarterback of all time, Joe Montana.
Yeah, and Steve Young.
And Steve Young.
Fuck Steve Young too.
And you had the greatest linebacker probably in this solar system, Ken Norton Jr.
Yeah.
And it was...
his head and the rest of his body.
Oh, shit, man. For a little while, you had Deion Sanders, didn't you? Playing cornerback?
Yeah, I think for a short period of time there was Deion. Then Deion went to the goddamn Cowboys.
Yeah, he did. That was fun.
And played much better than he played for the 49ers.
So Deion Sanders introduced the do-rag to every white person in America.
Long enough to get it banned in the NFL.
Yeah. That's how goats do it though.
The do-rag is banned in 2 sports.
Yep. Which is crazy to me. You know?
Oh,
why?
Or racism. All right. So
can we talk about Christmas now?
So all right, no, we're not. I got one more piece of business here.
Okay. Right.
I looked at my Patreon just a second ago, and I have a second patron. And that patron is Dan Harbuck.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Dan Harbuck, thank you for supporting the program. with your dollars and your presence on the podcast last recording. Guys, I will take the opportunity also to apologize to Dan for my poor interview skills. I know you guys have heard the podcast I did with Dan. Most of you have found it lacking. That is to be expected. It was my first attempt at an interview without the person being in the room. I'm sorry. I will get better, I assure you.
You did a great job, Ray.
Well, no, that's not true. That's fine. All right, so that's done. We can begin talking about the greatest season of the year, which is the Christmas season. First off, I got to admit right away to everyone listening, I'm biased towards Christmas. I actually like this season quite a bit. Not like Thanksgiving, which I find almost abhorrent. Christmas, I like because I like a lot of the other pagan holidays. It has deep roots, and it has a reason to exist beyond the propaganda. Pirate Ben's eyes rolled so far to the back of his head, I could almost see the bottom of his brain. Okay, look, it's true. Christmas has deep roots. Not in the sense that of the Christmas you see today, but in the sense of the winter solstice. In the world, the winter solstice has been celebrated for as long as people could count days. But as far as Christmas itself, like in America, that is kind of like most things in America, something that we came up with. It's something that we invented to serve our purposes. Now, I'll get into a little bit of how we got there, but if you look into Christmas, the history of it and the evolution of it, the subject is way too deep to talk about for too long on a podcast.
Okay.
I'm really more interested in my personal feelings about it than I am in the deep history of it, but I'll try and give a little brief explanation as quick as I can. So in Scandinavia, the Northern Europe area, during the winter months, it's pretty harsh, okay? If you can imagine being that far up north on the planet, it's a pretty harsh winter. And so whenever they get to that point of the solstice, they know that after this day, the worst of the winter is behind them.
Okay.
All right, so they're like, all right, we're going to start getting some sun back. The sun returns is the idea. And so they celebrate that moment when the sun begins its climb back to ascendance. Mm-hmm. And there are also during that time period, they realize halfway into winter that these old cows ain't gonna make it. So they go ahead and kill them. Mm-hmm. And now they got fresh meat.
Okay.
And they also realize that all of that beer that they were brewing earlier in the year is now ready to drink.
Okay.
So now we're about to get drunk. So we're about to eat well, about to get fucked up, right? Mm-hmm. The sun's coming back. There's nothing bad going on at this. Like it's really weird to think about because it's so bleak and cold and dark. It's actually the happiest time of the year because everything is. This is in ancient times, people. I'm not talking about today. I don't know what you do in Scandinavia now during the time of the year. I'm hoping it's happy, but I don't know.
Porn.
Yeah, so it's great. It's great in Scandinavia. Anyway, so this time of the year it's just great. You know, it's cold, but you're drunk. It's cold, but you got fresh meat for the first time of the year. Mm-hmm. You know, it's cold, but it's gonna get better. And this is the first time you can look at yourself in the mirror and believe that you're telling the truth. And so it's a celebration in Scandinavia. And it sort of happens that way everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world, almost every culture, people look at the winter solstice as being a time of hope. And that predates Jesus by quite a bit. I mean, centuries. But it also leads to some odd behavior in certain cultures. For example, in Rome, they have the celebration called the Saturnalia. That was a celebration of the god Saturn. And they celebrated this by declaring that all of the slaves now became the masters. Okay. And all of the poor are now placed in charge of the city of Rome. Mm-hmm. And they closed down all the schools and all the businesses so that people could just have sex in the streets and shit like that.
Sure.
And I thought they did this for like a day. Turns out this lasted for like a month. Like an entire month of December was just like chaos in the streets and free and fancy debauchery of all types.
Sure.
That's an odd thing to do, I think, to celebrate the winter. But that's exactly what they did, and that's kind of what the later Christians glommed onto when they started trying to find about looking for a date for Christmas. Because in the early Christianity, Easter was the holiday. Right. Christmas wasn't the thing that they celebrated.
What was Easter about?
Easter was all about Jesus dying on the cross and saving and washing the sins of man away with his own blood.
Right. Okay.
And so that was a thing worth celebrating.
Right.
We still do it. We still
Sure.
celebrate that. I think it's a thing worth celebrating if that's how you feel about it. I mean, that's a dope thing for a person to do for another person.
Okay.
You fucked up. I'll take the punishment for you.
But you like the baby Jesus story better.
I don't like the baby Jesus story better per se, but I think it's definitely more like rather than me owing Jesus for him saving my life with his own, I could just, stroke his baby hair and be like, oh, Jesus.
Right.
How pleasant.
I think baby Jesus is the best Jesus.
Well, but Am
I skipping ahead? I'm sorry.
Well, the 4th century church felt the same way. They were like,
you have more liberal propaganda to go over.
Yeah, I do. So the 4th century church felt the same way. They were like, Easter's kind of a downer. We need a holiday where people can celebrate.
Right.
And so they were like, all right, what about the birth of Jesus? That was a good momentous moment. They were like, we can celebrate that. It's like, okay, when? And so you start looking around the calendar for dates. And if you ever looked at the Catholic calendar, it's full of.
It's a little full.
There's just not a whole lot of room there to put shit.
They got shit every weekend.
It's pretty much.
It's one of the reasons I couldn't join. Their schedule was too full.
He's not even joking. I mean, I looked around on Catholic feast days when I decided I want to have sex with a Catholic.
Right.
And I realized that it's pretty much going to be Easter and Halloween.
Yeah.
Are going to be my best chances for making kids.
Right, biblical relations.
And so we went around the calendar. We were like, all right, what about in the December months? And they said, well, that's where they put that fucked up Saturnalia thing.
Okay.
That's the debauched month.
Right.
And like, well, tell you what, we haven't done Saturnalia in a long time. Why don't we just try it and see how it works out?
Okay.
Now, this was a gamble. It was a big gamble because if you pick Saturnalia, that meant, okay, you can celebrate the birth of Jesus, but you can't tell people how to celebrate the birth of Jesus. It's not really your holiday, so you can't put that many caveats on it and have it work.
Okay.
And so they were like, you know what, we'll give it a shot. And so they picked late December, and predictably, people began acting poorly around the holiday. This was a Saturnalia, so people started with the whole, the poor run shit. They did this thing where they elected a lord of misrule, which was the poorest person in town. He became the lord of the city, and the poor would go at people's houses and give us all your food and shit. And if you didn't, then they would start breaking your windows and shit. It was like this was Christmas.
I feel like this is something that you would only do once.
They did it for a long time. I agree with you. It's something you don't do once. They did it for a long time. So people go to church in the morning. Then after that, they would get drunk. Imagine a Mardi Gras carnival,
right?
Over the entire whole of Europe. That was Christmas. It was fun. It was a celebration, but it's not really family friendly. Can we agree to that?
All right.
I mean,
it's not something that you just take.
Maybe making family friendly.
Well, maybe with kids in the back in the day. I don't know. It's I don't really start to struggle with how people were treating children back in these days. But anyway, we fast forward and we're trying to get America going. You're like, all right, America, what are we going to do for holidays?
Mm-hmm.
And America did not want to do Christmas.
Okay.
We're founded by Puritans. Puritans did not like Christmas because it was debauched time of the year.
Were the Puritans actually pure?
No.
Okay.
No,
well,
that's
I'm trying to keep up.
But that was their marketing.
Okay. Right.
You know, so they had to stay on brand.
Right.
So they're like, yeah, no fucking Christmas. Christmas was actually banned. Was actually outlawed in Boston.
Really?
Yeah, if you celebrated Christmas in Boston before like 1700, you could be fined 5 shillings.
Did you know I've been to Chicago and New York, but I have not been to Boston, nor do I want to go?
There's nothing. You're not missing a goddamn
You'll get
thing.
lost.
You're not missing a goddamn thing in Boston.
Well, anyway.
I went to Boston. The streets there are retarded.
Well, anyway, continue so Christmas is outlawed.
Christmas was outlawed in Boston. There was other places they were like, hey, Christmas is fine. You know, we celebrate and nothing happened. But it's nothing national.
Okay.
And but you start having these sort of Christmassy rumblings because of all of these Germans and Scandinavians that are coming over to the country. And so I'm going to look this up. I have it pulled up because this is so interesting. So we have this. Let's see his name. Okay, so you have this guy by the name of, what did he go by? I'm looking for his pen name. Just a second, guys.
Something, son.
Thomas Nast. That's it. So Thomas Nast was an inventor. It was the 1800s, the mid-late 1800s. Thomas Nast was the inventor of Americana.
Okay.
Okay, he invented the Republican elephant and the Democratic donkey.
Mm-hmm.
He invented Uncle Sam.
Okay.
Okay, like the American icon images were all dreamed up by Thomas Nast. And Thomas Nast also invented an image for Santa Claus.
Okay.
He's the one that gave the whole image, the visual image of the jolly old elf. But he was not the one that he was drawing on a story called a Visit from St. Nicholas.
Okay.
Which was a little story that was written by this Calvinist dude. And the first line was "'Twas night before Christmas."
Okay.
And so that's what we know it by as "'Twas night before Christmas." It's actually like, the night before St. Nicholas, something like that. And the Scandinavians called St. Nicholas Santa Claus, which became Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
And years later, that was that poem, the night before Christmas. That was written by Clement Moore, a professor in New York Episcopalian Seminary. He was writing a story for his kids, and somebody published it by accident, and all of a sudden now we got Santa Claus.
Okay.
All right. So then after Thomas Nast glommed onto the image, trying to drum up support for the Union during the Civil War.
Okay.
And so that image began to circulate through Americana. Around 1870, Christmas became a national holiday.
Okay.
Years later, Coca-Cola is trying to expand their reach to children.
Uh-huh.
And so they then grabbed his image, gave it Coca-Cola colors, red and white,
Uh-huh.
and now we have our Santa Claus.
Okay. What year was that?
1930s.
Okay. Dope.
So, and because we needed something to happen, we needed some sort of uniting family-oriented time of the year for America,
right?
Being a growing country,
sure,
Christmas was perfect,
right?
And this image was perfect, and so we started sifting through the wreckage of Saturnalia's past, before when people would just go through the streets drunk and having sex and throwing shit and having crazy ass costumes and all that. We started sifting through all of that nonsense and schmutz and used condoms, and we brought up, hey, we can decorate a tree and call it a Christmas tree. And oh, look, in Scandinavia, they would burn a log during this time of year that would burn for 12 days, and that was called the Yule log. Let's do that. It's like, oh, look over here. And we just kept getting all of these different traditions.
Just from that time of year, regardless of what was being celebrated.
Regardless of what was being celebrated or who was celebrating. We would just say, as long as we could hear the story, we would say that was Christmas. And we would gather it all together, put it all into December the 25th, and then we told all the kids that this is the way it always was.
Yeah.
That for centuries, people have been celebrating Christmas just this way, with Santa Claus or Saint Nicholas. Or Saint Nicholas, by the way, was Turkish. He was a skinny Turkish bishop.
Yeah.
Like it absolutely has nothing to do with anything that's related to Santa Claus. Just want everybody to know that. And so we put this. So we cobbled together our own American holiday.
I was always sure that Santa Claus was actually Yulnir from the Norse mythology.
No, well, there is a connection to the god Odin. A lot of times this time of year they thought that Odin would fly through the air and he would actually look down as he flew through the air, and anybody that was outside, he would determine if they were going to live or die that year. So people just stayed inside.
That's more like the Futurama version of Christmas. Then.
Yes, exactly. And so that's I'm telling you, they took stuff from all over the place to put this holiday together. And by the end of it, people were starting to see children as children, and so they were loosening their restrictions. They were trying to find a way. In other words, if you wanted to be nice to your kid, you couldn't do it all the time. If you did it all the time, you're spoiling them. Usually, most of the year, you're just making them work or punch them in the face or something along those lines. But during Christmas time, you gave yourself permission, and the culture gave you permission to now be nice to your children.
Okay.
And that was only acceptable during Christmas. And so Christmas became the child's holiday, which became the family holiday, and it became something of a jolly season, of a season of giving. And my argument isn't that is wrong. My argument is that perhaps it always was underneath the surface. We're going to get into that as soon as we get back from this break.
My name ain't Mikey, but yeah, I rock. You know why? Because I don't give a fuck.
All right, you're back to the Tattoo with Children. So that was a really quick whirlwind sort of history of Christmas. As fast as I could get the thing out.
Liberal propaganda.
There was probably about 3 or 4 podcasts in there that we could talk about. Like just going through what went on in Rome during that period of time. I didn't even talk about the Juvenalias that were started by Nero. Like it gets real fucking weird, guys. But all that to say, to me, Christmas has always been, okay, from my way of thinking. It wasn't a thing that happened. The whole thing we got in the South, Jesus is the reason for the season. I never believed that shit, and I still don't.
Yeah.
It's not that Jesus is the reason for a season. It's the season was there. You stuck Jesus on top of it, and Jesus has no idea what the fuck you're talking about. We
have to all be wrong about something, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I don't mind you celebrating Jesus' birthday because it calls attention to a good time of the year. Like in my way of thinking, the winter solstice has always been about giving back something that you were potentially taking away for the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. Hope. Like you start out at the beginning of the year and everything is a slog. Everything is headed towards that deep, dark winter. You're preparing for it. You're dreading it. You're scared that you might not survive. And then that winter solstice hits. And on the other side of it, you're thinking that you know what? Now we're out of it. Now we made it. Now things are looking up. And I think that energy over centuries has a momentum. I believe fully that there is a magic in that, and that this season is magical. When I was a kid, I used to tell people, look, bad things don't happen during Christmas. They'll say, well, what this bad thing happened? I said, you know what? It looks bad to you, but I bet from a different angle, it's not that bad at all. It's like people said, well, that person died. Said, no, that person ended their story at the right places at the right time. I was very much could not be shaken out of my Christmas spirit, and I'm still kind of that way. Before I go more into me and Christmas, what are your thoughts on Christmas, Mike?
So Christmas has always just been associated with one general idea for me my entire life, and that is happiness.
Okay.
Through just having something to be content about, I suppose. Okay. Plenty of food, warmth of your home, nice things to look at,
You're from the northern part of the United States, and that is a very Northern Europe sentiment around this time of the year.
I actually like reading about the Norse and the Celtic traditions around the holiday because I feel at home with them.
You go. Okay. All right. That's an interesting take in a sense because I didn't expect it at all. I expected something completely different from you, and you gave me something that was very, very traditional. Ben, what are your feelings on it? Ben has been checked out the whole episode.
I don't know. Christmas is it's twofold. I mean, as far as like having kids around goes, when I was younger or when my kids were younger, Christmas is a great time. It's it's lights and hot chocolate and snow and carols and all those good things. As an adult, I hate this month.
Okay.
I fucking hate it. I love business. I love doing business. I love starting business. I love creating. And America takes a month-long vacation.
Right.
To purchase gifts and give them to each other.
Right.
And they don't do anything else.
Correct.
So, like, if I call the energy company to pay my bill today, no one will be there.
That's correct.
If I want to go buy a taco today, no one will be there.
There you go.
And nothing gets done for a solid month. And then January 5th, everyone will come back to the world.
Right.
And be like, hey, Ben, over my month-long vacation, I had this really great idea. And my general response, with the exception of if you're close to me, you work with me, or you're my banker,
right?
My general response is, fuck you, fuck the person that brought you into the world, and I'll talk to you in April.
Like, I don't really know if that's different than your response any other time of the month.
Everybody takes off. You can't get anybody on the phone.
Real talk. Like,
you're just like, hey man, let's go hang out. Sorry, I have a family. I have a family day.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's hang out next week. Oh, that's the other side of my family. Oh, well, let's hang out the week after that then. Oh, that's my ex's family. You know what? We're not friends anymore.
He's 150% right. Like, I am one of those people where I do not take the holidays off. I do not take Christmas off. My schedule has not changed in any way. I'm still doing my podcast. I'm still going to work. I don't take any vacation days off. Like, this is just another month for me as far as my schedule is concerned. And so I totally get what he's saying when everybody else is like, I've got to take this week off. I'm like, why?
Is now a bad time to tell you guys I'll be in Hot Springs next week?
Is that a bad time to tell me you're going to be in Hot Springs next week? Yes, this is a very fucking bad time to tell me you're going to be in Hot Springs next week. In fact, you're not going to Hot Springs next week. You're going to be here, okay? So tell your wife that those plans just fell through, that you broke your leg or got gonorrhea or you got diarrhea, and you cannot go anywhere next week. Hot Springs is off the table.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, it'll work out just fine, okay, Mike? Because this, I love this season, but Ben is right. Guys, we're adults. We can't stop doing business just when business is getting good. Okay? You can't stop all the shit that you do just to hang out with your family. As wonderful as your family is, but you still have to feed them, right? You still, it's like we still got shit to do as adults. As kids, yes, absolutely. You take school off and you go play in the snow, and you go, hang out with your friends and get new toys and all that good shit. As adults, we can't afford to do that shit. That's not how we roll. So yeah, I totally get that part of it. From my perspective, though, my feelings about Christmas don't really tie to that, because when I go back and look back at it, I was never really that person that changed what they were doing in December. I just changed how I felt about December. Like, okay, so let me go back a little bit. Let me talk about me and Santa Claus for a second. Like, when I was a kid, you know how all kids have that sneaky suspicion that Santa Claus isn't real because the story is so ridiculous? Mm-hmm. It's just like, so yeah, I know this guy somehow comes down your chimney and leaves gifts, and then he leaves after he's spied on you for all year, and he has a list. And like all the little parts of the story just don't make any goddamn sense. And kids aren't stupid, so they kind of know that it's not true. No matter how gullible they are, they still got a sneaky suspicion that's not true. Me, I, on the other hand, always felt that the story made a little bit of sense. Not because the details made sense, but because like the only way that's possible is with magic. And I've always believed in magic. So when I was a kid, I was the one that left the milk and cookies for Santa and wrote him a little note. And then the next day, the milk and cookies were gone. So, hey, Santa came and he got me milk and cookies. And I remember one year, I was like wanting to switch it up a little bit. And so like, hey, let's do veggie sticks for Santa because he's fat. And my dad's like, I'm not going to tolerate that kind of faggotry in my house. And I was like, what? I'm not talking to... And my sister's like, yeah, seriously, are you gay? I'm like, no, I'm not. Okay, fine, we'll do brownies. Switch it up for Santa. And so he made brownies one year, and he ate the brownies. And I thought, man, this is dope. And so I made brownies every year after that. Wrote him a little note. And then one year, Santa Claus wrote me a note back saying that he was not going to come back to my house the next year because he was too busy leaving presents and gifts for the children in Africa who didn't have much. And I immediately called bullshit because I knew that was a lie. I knew it was a lie because I had been watching television for a long time, being a child of the 80s. And so I knew for a fact that nobody gave a fuck about the kids in Africa. They didn't have shit. Those motherfuckers did not get toys. They got sandwiches for Christmas, okay? You're not telling me that this last year you brought me the entire Castle Grayskull He-Man set, and you can't bring me anything the next year because you're too busy leaving bowls of rice for little in Zimbabwe. Fuck you. I knew that was a lie. So I had two choices. Either Santa Claus was not real, which meant that magic did not exist, or Santa Claus was an asshole. And there was a little voice inside of me that says, of course, magic is real. Of course, the things that you can't see but still believe are real. So the only other thing must be that Santa Claus is a dick. And so from that point forward, in my mind, and in my actions, and in my words, Santa Claus was a dick. And you can have me with my family. I had a grudge against Santa Claus from that point forward because I knew he was a lying dick. And that didn't affect my feelings about Christmas all that much. I would still sail right through the season with a smile on my face because now I could be Santa Claus. I took on the role of Santa Claus. And so I would buy the gifts and I would get the gifts wrapped. I would hide them under the tree. And, I would make sure that I bought one gift for everybody in my family. And I made sure that we got up on time. And like all the little things that I used to attribute to other people, I now took on that role, and it expanded the season so much for me. It made it so much more enjoyable to be the one that was giving the gifts, and it clued me in on the secret of the season. The secret of the season was the true spirit of it was separate from Jesus, separate from Santa Claus, even separate from your family. The true spirit of it is giving back. Giving back something that at one point you had taken away. And once I realized that, I understood that this was actually a good thing. That the whole winter solstice was one of the few natural positives. And the reason why it keeps coming up in different cultures and different places as being a season of hope is because that's what it is. It's one of the things that the universe or God or nature has built into us as being, for this period of time, you have permission to start feeling okay about the different things in life. To me, that's the way I always viewed it from that point forward. And yes, I did grow up. Me and Santa Claus are back on good terms again. He doesn't come to my house because I don't allow him there. Like I didn't let my children glom onto that Santa Claus legend as being a thing that was real. I just wouldn't have it. Not because I held a grudge against Santa Claus still, because I wanted them to know about the real magic, not about the Coca-Cola magic, right? And so to do the real magic, I knew they had to get past Madison Avenue right away.
I want to bring up something, though.
Sure.
I'm welcoming myself back to the podcast. This continually comes up in our culture, and it's a very big deal today about fake news and about like it almost like so far, and I'm not trying to take it too serious, but like so far, both on Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's almost like I feel like what's being there's a feeling of mistrust in what you're saying.
Mistrust about who? Mistrust towards who?
The story of Christmas, the story of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Why is that?
The lies.
Okay.
But
are they?
I don't have a problem with the story of Christmas as much.
Right.
Because Jesus was born from my way of thinking.
Okay,
all of that. So the story itself is, was he born in December? Hell no, he was born in December. But that's not a big issue. We can celebrate birthdays whenever we want to.
I think that's the point I'm getting at. The point I'm getting at is that everyone feels like they've been let down, and the only let down is that they didn't educate themselves. I read this book when I was young, and I had a big chip on my shoulder called Self-University. And I think it really struck me that the idea of almost everything you learn as a child is wrong.
Sure.
I think it's a really interesting point. And I don't want to come from a perspective of you're wrong here, because I don't think you are.
Is it a matter of being wrong? Or is it a matter of, as a child, we need certain things abstracted for us?
Yeah, I just have two different perspectives on Thanksgiving and Christmas.
But the vibe behind it is that they lied to you.
No,
and I don't think they did.
Well, take this back. Thanksgiving is an out and out lie, and yeah, that's just a plain lie.
Okay,
the story of Thanksgiving.
Okay, sure,
but it was a lie with a purpose. It's a lie that has served a purpose.
But let's be real.
Sure.
If that's the case,
yeah,
then why do you and your family celebrate it?
Well, I asked that during Thanksgiving.
I know, but I'm saying like it's a cultural thing. So even if it's based on something that isn't the way it went, then move on. Like, don't practice. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I have a hard. I think it's hitting a raw nerve with me today because it's like this goes back to why I get tattoos. Like, everyone says they're different, but they're not actually. Like, you and your wife look like everyone else.
Yeah.
You drive cars like everyone else.
Yeah.
So, what's the rub with the fact that Coca-Cola sold your great-grandparents a story and they told you that story? Like, what's the issue? I
don't really have an issue with that. I'm not taking issue with Christmas at all. Like, to me, like, and I just explained why you're at the room. Explained why. It's because I believe that the story that they told tapped into the story that was true.
Okay.
Which was that this is a season for hope and giving. It's all about giving back. And so I don't mind the story. Like my thing with Santa Claus has to do with me and Santa Claus.
Okay.
That's a personal issue, and I've always couched it that way.
Yeah.
My thing with Thanksgiving is also the same way, where it's a personal feeling I have about Thanksgiving as far as why I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But the story being false to me was in order to cover up the sins of what our founding fathers committed to get us here. We got here, which is fine.
Yeah.
But we got Thanksgiving was founded in blood, and it stays in blood. You know, that's like we got that in blood.
Yeah.
Whereas Christmas, we actually got here with a purpose. In other words, our country was hurting.
Yeah.
We were in civil war.
Right.
You know, we had lost a lot, and then our country said we have to give something back.
Okay.
We've taken too much from these people.
Okay.
We have to get something back, and we're going to give them Christmas.
Okay.
And they say, well, the Christmas that you want to give them doesn't exist.
Right.
There is no holiday that does this.
Right.
And so they made one.
Right.
I think that is a positive story.
Okay.
You know, like that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Is it a lie? Not really.
Yeah, I mean, almost, I think that's what I'm getting to with the concept of self-university is that to an extent, almost everything is different than we think.
Sure.
Like in other words, until you read de Tocqueville's Democracy in America,
right,
you grow up thinking we're a democracy.
Right, yeah.
Until you go to seminary, you think the word preacher is in the Bible.
Right.
It isn't.
It is not. I've always told people, I told the children that don't believe anything anybody says ever until you've proven it to yourself. And once you've proven to yourself that this thing is true, then you have to live your life by it.
But I think that's my issue. Mm-hmm. My issue is that people walk around saying things like, well, not enough people have educated themselves. I think the more correct issue, though, is that not you, Ray,
I'm following you.
but people educate themselves and then they get angry that other people aren't educated instead of living their life by these new set of beliefs they have.
Instead of just using the truth to improve themselves, they use the truth to judge others.
Yes. And I think, in other words, when I see people taking pictures with Santa Claus, I mean, it's been a long time, but most of the stuff you just said about Christmas, I think the reason I glazed over is because, I read it.
Yeah.
I got it. I was like 15. Like, I mean, it was like, whatever. I mean, and I don't mean to, there's no disrespect in that statement, but it's like, we're not going to change the world by educating people about this. We're going to change the world by how we interact with that knowledge.
Yeah, I do believe what you said at first is true. That people tend to get a little angry when they learn that Santa Claus isn't real, or that the Tooth Fairy isn't real, or that the Easter Bunny isn't real. Like, where did this come from? Why are we? And they'll do things like become atheists, or they'll do things like call themselves anti-theists rather than atheists. It's like I'm just against the church. It's like, calm the fuck down, all right? It's not. Listen, the truth is, the whole universe is made up of things that we cannot see.
Right.
It's made up of things that we cannot perceive. We can only view these things in shadow. We can only view them out of the side of our eye. And so we come up with concepts to explain things that we don't really understand. And the result from that can look like untruth. It's not necessarily untruth all the time. Like, again, I have to and the people say, well, what about Thanksgiving? How you feel about Thanksgiving is a sham. Okay, I got to point that out.
Okay,
it's a sham from your perspective.
From the perspective of,
because of the fact that there's a verifiable truth that can be seen there, and yet we don't deal with that.
Yes, we're going to cover the truth with the lies.
But Christmas,
I think that Christmas, the story exposes the truth.
Yeah, exactly. It's an abstraction, yes, as I would call it. It is not a full raw picture, right?
Yes,
but it has the hints to lead you to the truth.
Like, if people were to ask me, if a child comes to me and asks, "Hey, Flavaray, is there a Santa Claus?" I would say, well, let me ask you this. When you get up in the morning and you have a gift there, are you happy that Santa Claus came to your house to give you a gift? If the child says yes, then I say, then yes, Santa Claus is real. If the child says, well, my mother did that, I say, yes, your mother did that, and your mother is Santa Claus.
Right.
And I don't mean that since your mother's pretending to be Santa Claus. I mean your mother is the Santa Claus in your heart.
Right.
So Santa Claus is always real.
Right.
And that's the way my daughter understands it as well.
Right.
Like, yes, we still buy our kids gifts. We still wrap them, and we still don't let them have them until Christmas.
What is the difference to you between, besides the already known fact that, from your perspective, there's a different set of facts about Thanksgiving than the facts about Christmas, which to me are similar? In other words, we're told one story, but the facts are different. So that I see the similarities there between Christmas and Thanksgiving. Are there any other differences to you between the two?
Like, this is the one I just said. Like, Thanksgiving is there to cover up a crime, where Christmas is here to expose, to tap us into a deeper truth. And
you, from your perspective, that's not a perspective issue?
No, it is a perspective issue.
No. I'm talking about you. In other words, what if you began celebrating Thanksgiving what if you changed your perspective on it and began celebrating Thanksgiving for the purpose of not covering up?
Yeah, it would. Like I've done that several times over the years. Like I've looked at Thanksgiving from several different directions. I've celebrated it with my family, celebrated without my family, celebrated with other people's family. I've not celebrated at all. I've cooked it myself. I've refused to cook it. Like I've done Thanksgiving from several different directions for this purpose of figuring out what it is exactly. Yeah. In other words, is there anything there that I can glom onto? And the truth that I've come to is that there simply isn't enough there for me to glom onto myself personally, but there is enough there culturally to not want to take that away from my family. In other words, when my family gets together, they eat and they play games and they are genuinely enjoying the day, then that's not something that I'm interested in standing in the way of. It's not necessarily something that I can freely enjoy myself. You know, it's something that I tend to endure more than enjoy.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that's a perspective issue.
I mean, it is a perspective issue, but my perspective is my perspective.
Yeah,
like I've switched it. I've switched it.
Right,
back.
right. Yeah. It just, I think though that it comes down to what we're willing to work with, because I don't know. This is striking me as really interesting because of probably the political season we're in as well this Christmas. In other words, what I'm hearing from a lot of people is that they want to change the government, but they're not willing to do the work. In other words, okay, if you want to run this, right? If you want to say that let's just go straight offensive. I'm gonna create some controversy here. I'm in that mood. If you want to say that white people did all these bad things,
and they did,
keep
going,
then get all the non-white people together and do it differently.
Sure.
Except that you don't actually want to do the work to do that.
I have no interest in doing that.
100%. So, but what we have is people living 100 years and then dying, complaining,
angry,
complaining. Dude. But they're not willing to do what Jefferson and Franklin and look. I'm sorry, but those guys did something that I can't do.
Yeah.
And
I'm not ready for a revolution.
No, not at all. And also, you're not ready to actually pay yourself for the roads to be fixed.
Exactly.
And neither am I.
Like what I want is for things to go upward, so that my children can enjoy more than what I enjoyed.
Right.
I don't want them, like, if I start a revolution, that means I'm starting over from the beginning.
Right.
So I can look back at the beginning and go, well, that was fucking horrible.
Right.
I don't want that for my children.
I don't think so, no. I don't want it either.
What I want them to have is faster internet. So we're not going to do a revolution.
Right.
Instead, we're going to work with what we have.
And I think that's what I appreciate about what you're saying about Thanksgiving. I think one of the challenges that I would issue to everyone, though, is, yes, there are bad parts and good parts of the story of Thanksgiving. Sure. There are bad parts and good parts about the story of Christmas.
Yes.
There are bad parts and good parts about politics.
Yes.
There are bad parts and good parts about government.
Yeah, in general.
And there are bad parts and good parts about relationships. But I think what you end up finding is what you were looking for. So are you looking for the goodness that you can work with and create a better way for yourself? Or are you lying to yourself and looking for the negativity while grasping
the
very thing that those bad things gave you.
Yeah.
Like, in other words,
that's the question of everything. Well, it's the question of, see, this is getting way away from Christmas, but like it's the question of, I got into an argument with a guy just recently about feminism.
Yeah.
You know, where he was like, well, feminism is completely full of shit because they don't want to give men the same rights that they have. In other words, if a man wants to be taken care of in a house and not work, just be a homemaker, then they take issue with it. Whereas they want the freedom to do everything that the men do. And immediately, like, he was making an argument for feminism because he doesn't know what feminism is. In other words, his perspective was that if a man had the quote unquote freedom to do the things that women do traditionally, that would be advantageous somehow to the men, where in fact that concept is disadvantageous to the patriarchal system, which is exactly what feminism says. So, like, you're arguing yourself into a hole. It's that same thing where you're grasping onto the negative while yelling about the thing that you're grasping. Feminism today oftentimes does the exact same thing. Well, they'll grasp onto the negative part and say, "Go be a hoe,"
right?
While yelling about being treated like a hoe.
Yeah, and I guess to me, I think it doesn't go away from Christmas, because I think you're right about the story of Christmas. In other words, it you know, a long time ago, I used to tell you, specifically, I remember talking to you about this, that, you know, when people factually get into issues of the ancient text, whether it be the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, or the Tao, or any of these, when they look specifically where it came from, what it was, so on and so forth, they get very twisted because a lot of times you can't, archaeologists haven't uncovered.
Yeah, you can't verify.
You can't verify a lot of this, but when you look at it as a story,
yes,
you're able to glean certain things from it.
Yeah.
And so when we look at Christmas or Thanksgiving or some of these things as factual things, I think that's maybe an evolution in our mental process that we started looking at too much as factual. Like, if you want to look at science or law, okay, if you want to look at how society is formed, the makeup of a township, a state, a country, so on and so forth, well, we need facts.
Right.
But if you want to look at the holidays we celebrate, I don't know if any of them are factual. And it's probably a mistake to look at them as such. They're all story related.
Yeah, no, they're all very much story related. But then again, I look at everything through the story lens. So I looked at the story of Christmas, and I found a story of many of the positive things in life. Whereas opposed to the story of Thanksgiving, I found a story about many of the negative things in life. And one was the reasons for the way the story is told also pop up when I'm looking at things like that. And the reason for Thanksgiving and Christmas were almost at odds when you look at the two together. Like, Thanksgiving was there in order, it's like specifically to reinforce racist concepts, whereas Christmas was there to bring together a country. I mean, it was just two different reasons for the way the story was told. It was just putting everything together the way I did in my mind, colored the way that I would process that information. I don't think everybody has to view it that way, but I do think that regardless, the truth is the truth. In other words, even if you don't like Christmas as a holiday or as a month or as a concept, in the fullness of time, you will still give more during Christmas than you do any other time of the year. In the fullness of time, you will still be more hopeful during Christmas than any other time of the year. It's just something that happens whether you want it to or not. Like, there was a time when I couldn't really celebrate Christmas. Christmas was a very hard time. My firstborn nearly died her first Christmas, and then she got sick the second Christmas. And it seemed like every Christmas I was spending in some form of NICU. Those are not happy memories, but in the fullness of time, it comes back around. Christmas always ends up being a reason for me to hope for the rest of the year. And this Christmas, I am extra hopeful. This Christmas, I am looking more forward to the coming year than just about any year I can remember in the last 10 or 12. Like, this is going to be I can fucking feel it, people. Like, you see impeachment and elections and, tax laws and what other strife? Australia's already burning. They've already burned down California. They're probably going to do that again this coming year. Climate change. There's a lot of things negative. People, I think that this year is going to be the year where everyone in the present day and in the future will look at this year and go, this is when it all started to turn the right way. It's just what I believe. And I believe it more today in this Christmas season than I did a month ago. And that's kind of what I believe is the main point of Christmas. Like, if there's going to be hope for you in the coming year, then you're going to start to feel it now. This is your best time. In other words, start today. Start now changing your perspective to look for the good. It's the best time because the time is now. You get what I'm saying, guys?
Yeah.
Like, it's like there's absolutely nothing wrong with any part of your life at the winter solstice because now it's all behind you and everything is ahead of you. There's no reason. Now, this could happen any time of the year. You can do this at any time of the year. But this time of the year is when everybody does it naturally. So just take advantage of it. Take all of that energy. Take it into yourself. And look for the good. Give back something that you took away. This has been Tattoo with Children. You can find Tattoo with Children on Facebook at Tattoo with Children. You can find us on IG at Tattoo with Children. You can find us on Twitter at Tattooed With. You can find me on Twitter at Hunter Vanguard. That's one word, Hunter Vanguard. You can find Ben on IG at Black Crow Brother and also at Black Spot Tattoo Company. You can find me on IG at Madara Shadow. And you can find Mike Payne at CIO Payne on IG and also at Payne.points. That's Payne spelled Payne. And I just want to say Merry Christmas to all of my listeners. Take care of yourselves before you take care of anybody else. And remember to look for the hope, take it into yourself, and give it to others. I love you.
We were born to bring it back, but it's more than basic. It's a portion of his rap at the core is ancient. It's supported like a pack of some more observations. They're important like the fact that we're bored of fake shit. More creative, have the floor, so take it. Travel to the core is a normal placement. Tattoos on my